Welcome to a football show, Monday, full pad edition here on the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. PK, you and I, Oklahoma drill later? What do you think?
Pass.
Yeah, that's smart by you. Smart by you. Even though the low man does win normally.
I'm not a hitter.
You.
I'm not a hitter. I'm a talker.
just run your mouth. Well, we got a lot to talk about today. Cam Ward was by far the best quarterback at practice today. Also threw 2 interceptions, but it was a very good first day of padded practice for Cam Ward, for the receivers, and I think for the offense mostly today. So we'll get into what we've seen. We'll also hear from Carnell Tate and then do a rookie review at the end of the show where we kind of look at where everybody's at from this draft class and some of the undrafted free agents as well and see what they're up to. Robert Saleh had some really interesting things to say about individual drills that we're going to let you hear from his press conference today as well. And then obviously we'll empty the notebook with all observations, like James Williams was very noticeable today at practice for the Titans defense. So lots of stuff to get to. Sinkers Beverages' second annual 40th birthday party coming up this Saturday. We're going to be at Tomato Fest, so come on out. We got floats. We got the parade in the morning. It's going to be a lot of fun. Drink a Bloody Mary, have a good time, buy some art, support some local businesses, and then Saturday night at Basement East, the birthday party for yours truly, Sinkers Beverages. Going to be a great party. You got 3 different bands. Come in from outside of the heat into the concert venue there, just a couple hundred yards down the road on Woodland Street there. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be some 440 people and some Sinkers people and some football people, so we're going to have a good time. So come on out. Tickets are only $15, linked in the show notes, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So come on out. Hang out. It's going to be a hot one, supposedly. so we'll see. If you want to get into the comment section, please do so. We've got a lot of time for you guys to sort of ask questions about certain players and who you want to know about and what you want to know about. We'll try to get you guys as much opportunity, of course, as usual, to get in. And so we will do that. Things like, howdy, how you doing, says Bustin. Afternoon, rarely get to see these live. Let's go. Of course, pressers were a little late today, so a little bit later today on the live stream, so do appreciate you guys for being patient there. Richard, here's the kind of questions we want a little bit later on. How did Anthony Hill look? I think he might be the pleasant surprise this season. We will do that in the rookie review, and maybe not as pleasant as you think just yet.
Shouldn't be a surprise. It's a second-round pick.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. All right, so here we go. Okay, let's get started here with Cam first. And look, I thought it was we had pads for the first time. It was a very eventful first few plays for the ones where Cam Ward rolls to his right and has to throw it with his left hand on their first play. On the second play, Kevin Winston and J.C. Latham get into a little skirmish. It was more of just a holding match than anything else. It wasn't a lot of yelling. Nothing came of it, but the energy levels were up. And then Cam Ward on the third play hits Calvin Ridley with probably the best throw of his entire training camp, but also maybe off-season program that I've seen, PK. He then followed that up with 2 total darts, or seeds, as he would say, to Wan'Dale Robinson. Just great throws in the first couple of team sessions. Came back and played pretty well. Threw another great one to Ridley. Did throw 2 interceptions. We'll get to that. But I thought overall, Mitch Trubisky looked like the second-string quarterback today, and Cam Ward looked like the starting quarterback today, and that's a really good step now that they're playing actual football, from my vantage point at least.
Yeah, I thought he had a pretty good day. It's hard not to let those 2 picks get into my thinking as I review it. So I give those some weight for sure, and the style to them goes against something that he said at the end of last season, which is kind of a big picture issue for me. But the command and the tempo and kind of the feel of him, he certainly nobody was threatening him as a better guy today, which we've seen maybe too often. So there was some pizzazz to him at times today. And his energy went up with the pads and with everybody else's energy going up, which you like to see. But you never want to put too much on one day. I was expecting the offense would not be good today, with the defense having, an overall head start, overall being better, and pads coming on. So I think the defense did well for itself. Offense did well for itself.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think the second and third team did anything super special, but I think if you're looking at those groups, Chim DK had a really nice play in team red zone. You got Alec Iomander making a few plays, and really Alec Iomander looked good. Mini camp all the way through.
Yeah, he's coming on.
All the way through training camp. I think he gives them a legitimate number 4 receiver. I think DK is a legitimate number 4 receiver. I think they're both kind of right there. These are all good questions, guys. Nick Singleton is a question. Right guard is a question. Who got the picks is good questions.
Well, are we going to refer to the questions, or are we going to answer?
Well, no, we're going to get to them. I'm just making sure they see that I'm acknowledging them. The first throw, we'll get to the interceptions here in a second, but it was Amani Hooker and Jermaine Johnson, which is an interesting one. But I think overall, I think the talk of Mitch Trubisky has looked better than Cam Ward has been a little overrated. I don't think that's what I've seen. I think Mitch Trubisky looks like a veteran who knows where to go with the ball, and Cam Ward looks like a second-year player, but has always looked more talented. The energy being different and it being quote-unquote football a little bit more, I think does help Cam Ward. I think he rises to that occasion. He enjoys just playing ball. And I thought, to your point, the command and knowing where to go with it, throwing in rhythm. I mean, there were probably 6 or 7 or 8 throws like that in team drills today where I just said that looks like that's what it's supposed to look like. And we'll get to the interceptions, and they do matter. I think on the first day of pads, you're probably telling him, get that stuff out of your system. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal. I wouldn't overreact to it because I think overall it was the best he has looked. I think OTA's minicamp and training camp so far. So
I don't like this comment from Andrew Cooper here. So if Iomander and DK look good in meaningless training camp, you say, oh, we shouldn't have spent money on Wan'Dale Robinson. So as soon as the Titans show any hint of being good at 4 or 5, which isn't in evidence, we have no idea what they'll look like at 4 and 5 in October and November. You say, oh, you shouldn't have gone and got a number 2 who's good. Like, why can't the Titans try to be good through 6 for once in their life? I just don't understand that thinking. I think that's the Titans having long-term trained fans. Like, you shouldn't expect us to have a good 4th or 5th receiver. As soon as we do, we should get rid of somebody. I just think that's how Titans fans are trained. And I've got a piece coming soon, and I'm putting no stock into. I mean, it's a nice daily story that Iomander or DK look good, but I've done a lot of research on this. I've got a piece coming out. The Titans looking deep in August has never meant anything for a wide receiver in November. It's meant Nick Williams dropping a wide open touchdown in Buffalo. It's meant Drew Bennett dropping a ball that could have beaten the dynastic New England Patriots at Gillette Stadium. It's meant Eddie Berlin dropping a ball that could have tied the AFC Championship game in Oakland. It means nothing.
Well, and I think, I agree with all of that analysis, and I can't wait to read the story. PaulKuharsky.com, by the way, for all of Paul's work. Make sure you check that out. I do think now this is sort of confirmation bias to some degree, so I got to be careful here because I really like them as prospects. Then they got them, and then they both, I thought, way overachieved as rookies.
Iomander didn't overachieve.
Based on the situation, he was asked to be a number 1 receiver as a 4th round pick, like by week 3 of his entire career. Like that is not, you're asking that player to do way too much. But he didn't do well at it, so
you can't say overachieved.
Well, I mean, I think a 4th round pick having his numbers last year is actually, in a normal offense, very, very respectable. And so it's all about progress and where you're going and what you're going to become. And I just think every step so far, they have done everything to show that their value in the draft where they were picked was good, that they can be totally contributing members to the offense. But I think to your point about, I think Andrew was being a little tongue-in-cheek with that comment. But I think, Iomander and DK don't do what Wan'Dale Robinson does, so you can always invest in something that's different to your receiving core. They went and invested with Carnell Tate because he's a true number 1. So no one's asking, I don't think fans, nor you or I, or the Titans, are asking Iomander and DK to be number 1s and 2 receivers. I think what we mean by, hey, they've looked good is they are looking good for number 3, 4, 5s. Like that's what they look good doing, going up against 3, 4, 5 defensive backs. Like that's what they should be. And I think that's a good development. I think we can just say, without having to couch it and contextualize it, just say, no, they look pretty good. And it's Wan'Dale Robinson looks pretty good. Carnell Tate looks pretty good. I think the receiving core today looked very good.
I think the receiving core today looked good, but I'll point out, like when Io Manor or DK are called on, they're generally going to be going against 2 and 3 defensive backs, not 4 and 5 defensive backs, depending on injuries, of course. But nobody's going to say, hey, they're playing their 4th and 5th receiver. We need to line them up against our 4th and 5th defensive back. That's not how it works, obviously. And what you want is your top 3 to play top 3 snaps, and for those guys to play, relatively bit parts.
Yeah. Chris says Io Manor has been better than some of those you just based off last year as well. Paul, you already know the fan base evaluates how they evaluate wide receiver talent. People thought NWI could be wide receiver 1, which is kind of crazy and funny. Let's see here. Lots of good questions in here. So let's go back to the who got the picks here. Let's just address that moving quickly. So both of them were identical, which I think is interesting. I don't know what it means exactly, but both interceptions for Cam were identical. He rolls right, and on broken plays or busted plays or coverage plays, he rolls to the right, and both times he had a wide receiver break wide open. On the first one, it was more middle of the field, and Calvin Ridley, curls his route at the sideline and turns upfield and is wide open if Cam just sees him. Instead, throws it back across his body into the middle of the field, and Amani Hooker intercepts it, and I presume takes it a long way, whatever that means. Who knows? In red zone or inside the 40, let's call it, on the final interception, same exact thing. Rolls to his right. Gunnar Helm is breaking deep into the end zone, wide open. Cam doesn't see.
Had to find him quick because there was somebody coming up the sideline.
No question. But he turns in back across his body, floats it back into the middle of the field, and Jermaine Johnson, the backside defensive end, runs up, makes a leaping interception to take the pass away. Now, I don't think this is a big deal, because you're telling Cam to do this stuff kind of in this moment. But the one thing I would say, and I don't know how you feel about this, it is how he plays the game. It is a natural instinct for him to try to make the big thing happen, to look back across the field. We saw it last year. So if they were coaching that out of his game, that certainly wasn't the case today. And I want to know, normally you are trained to, when you are the receiver on the near side of a rollout, breaking the pocket, you are supposed to, one person works back and one person turns and goes deep. And he should have seen that. That's one of the first things you should look at when you're rolling, is look at your deep shot and then find your underneath guy and then look back over the middle. And he missed both of them, and he threw interceptions on ill-advised throws. So not a big deal, but they were identical. And it is a thing that he did last year a lot.
And with some great success, which convinced him at the end of the year when he was asked, what's something you learned? Or what's the one thing you learned? I think maybe he said, I learned you can throw back across your body, which is a dangerous thing for a rookie quarterback to say. Like, my one big lesson is screw all those people who say you can't throw back across your body. Look, I did it 3 or 4 times with great success for giant plays, and I'm going to keep doing it. It's kind of the tone of what he said at the end of the season, which, I don't know if that's the big takeaway you want. And these two, Saleh dismissed the Johnson one as a spectacular defensive play by a defensive end. So take that. He said the other one's a bad decision. And you ultimately don't want him making that throw to Hooker, who kind of baited him into it as a smart defensive back. But I think those are heavily weighted. Sure. It's a practice and you try to get away with things and all of that. But also, where's this line? A lot of people say that, all right, it's practice and you don't be afraid to throw interceptions and all of that. And the other line is, well, you practice like you play and you don't want to do things in practice that you're not going to do on a Sunday and all of that stuff. So where's the line there? I don't know. But we're either going to look back and say, well, he's certainly smartened up the throws he makes. We haven't seen him doing that. Or we're going to say he did that at the beginning of August, and we talked about it, and we said, well, he's not going to do that sort of thing in a game, and here he is doing that sort of thing in a game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we'll see about that. Overall, I thought it was a really good first day for Cam in what I would describe as a very lackluster start to camp for everybody. Like, I think Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, their first 3 practices were about as boring as you can start training a camp. No real deep shots, no big plays on offense or defense, just sort of walk-through-ish types of practices with a little bit of more training camp intensity, because guys are trying to fight for jobs. But today was the first one where it felt different, and so I thought it was a good.
I can't take over a press conference as much as I want to, and I think the press corps would say I already am doing that, But if you had like tag-ons at the end, like quick yes or no's, that say, Robert, are you not running deep routes these first couple practices as part of the acclimatization? Because you don't want your receivers to go, which Vrabel said, 1 year, hey, we're not running deep these first couple days because we don't want the receivers running those routes right out of the gate. So I suspect that was part of what the first 3 practices were about. There were only a couple and they were moderately deep, not deep. So I think some things like that were at play. Then we talked to him on Saturday and said, kind of, looking for a preview of pads. And he said, the first couple days in pads are duds. So it feels like every time we get near something, you go, don't expect much. So I can't imagine we go into the day in Santa Clara next Tuesday and he says, don't expect much. This isn't going to be good. I would think he's saying this is a real measure for us.
I'd love for an NFL coach one time to just be like, look, these first 3 or 4 games of the regular season, just not that big a deal. We don't really count anything until week 5. Like that's when we really get started.
And really we want to be peaking after Thanksgiving.
That's right. All right. Anything else on Cam you want to add here?
No, I thought he spoke very well the first day. I think he's getting better and better at that.
That's true.
Still watch for the initial contrary thing. And I think those of us that really try to think about what we're working on, maybe set them up less with a question that's easy to like be contrary to the premise of, to try to get a better answer to. I need to think more about that.
That's fair. All right, we're going to empty the notebook here on the first day of pads, and so some of this will be y'all's questions, and I'm going to try to work through all of these, and we'll see. Andrew says, how has Nick Singleton looked? Not very noticeable in the first week, but I thought today he was used a lot more, was a bigger physical, more aggressive player. I still think he's going to have to fight and earn his reps and touches as a third string running back, but I think it's pretty safe to say that he is more talented than Chestnut and Mullings at this point.
There's some basic things that I don't see being corrected quickly that bother me. And one of them is that Nick Singleton doesn't finish his runs. The running backs fight through contact and all of that and break through and then ultimately tear. Now, if you're running from, backed up at the 10, you don't go 90 to the goal line. But if you're at the, negative 40, you run the 60 yards to the goal line. Tony Pollard does it. Derrick Henry did it. You do it. And Nick Singleton's not doing it. And Nick Singleton apparently isn't being told by Randy Jordan after they watch the film to go do that. And that bothers me. Why is he not doing that when everybody is coached to do that? And that's a standard fare around the league. Why is that not happening? I don't know. And I'll tack on top of that, like today, Saleh wasn't having plays blown dead. He said that on purpose. They want guys really to play through it, which sounds good. It's a defensive mindset until somebody gets hurt. And there were also guys on the ground at the end of some of these plays. Now, I've covered a lot of training camp football, and I've never seen guys go to the ground without multiple coaches yelling, keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. And nobody today said a word about keeping them up. And I'm putting this on the record now because somebody's going to get hurt not keeping them up, and we're going to go back and play this tape.
I did think one of the first player that hit the ground was Pollard and Hooker, and Pollard ran right into his face, and Hooker ended up taking him to the ground. They both kind of rolled over the top of Hooker, and he kind of pops up, and you could see Hooker like letting go mid-roll.
But nobody was giving him any grief for it.
Well, but he kind of came up and was like, I shouldn't have done that. But
giving himself grief.
Right. But also, when Pollard if somebody hits you in the face, and you all go to the ground, that's on the running back just as much as it is on the defensive back as well.
But it shouldn't be.
I agree. That one was like a really light one, but it was like the first one. But as practice went on, and as you get down the depth chart, though, guys are fighting.
Tackles near
guys
the
goal fighting.
Line on some of the late red zone stuff.
Yeah.
That's not good, I don't think.
Yeah.
You?
I don't care about the third string,
Yeah.
the third string players, because I want to see somebody play I want to see somebody play to the line, right up to the line, because when you're in those positions, those 45 guys are trying to fight for their lives, and I'm okay with a little extra juice on those guys. If you're the coaching staff and you have a player you don't want to put in that situation, sometimes you got to protect the players from themselves. Like, this is the first day of pads. They haven't hit anything in 7 months. Like, they're ready to go. Like, Jeffrey Simmons was the first guy out there during the first team drill, just standing there, like, bouncing around, ready to go. Like, he was ready. And so you kind of have to let them have their fun somewhat, but then you got to pull them back when they're starting to look like they might get themselves injured or whatever. So
I'm on I think it's for when somebody gets hurt.
I think it's interesting that they have an intentional strategy, though, that actually doesn't help that, but actually hurts it with the whistles. Like, I think that's an interesting twist to all of this. Let's see here. Did Jackie Marshall do anything of note? I noticed him on Saturday moving around a lot. He was not as noticeable today. Did you catch 96 much?
I haven't noticed him. But, yeah. I mean, look, I watch practice a little differently than everybody, so I'm not always looking at who makes the tackle or whatever on a certain play. I may be hell-bent on watching Ridley, and so if Jackie Marshall does something on that play, I may miss it.
Yep, that's fair. Corda, I know you wrote about this, talking about length. You asked Carnell Tate about this, so we'll play that answer coming up in a little bit, but you wrote about sort of length and size with Alontae Taylor, who, if you want to diffuse the vibes at a press conference, just bring your 5-month-old daughter up there. Just everyone melts, including myself as a father who doesn't have those little babies anymore. And sometimes I'm like, oh, that'd be nice. But you asked and you wrote about it, and Richard says, can Flott come up and make open field tackles? He's very small. They're not asking them to do that right now.
He said it's never been a problem. I mean, they certainly have to run support, but that's not their primary job. I watched Flott very closely today during most of the red zone period, and he really shut down Calvin Ridley. And he didn't have to jam him hard. He just got hands on him early and was very sticky to him. And the only play Ridley made in that period, he started on Alontae Taylor's side, ran through zone, got behind a safety, and made a play, having come across the field onto Flott's side, but was not Flott's responsibility. I thought Flott was outstandingly sticky against Ridley. Now I'd like to see him against Tate. But I was impressed. And it's just interesting, Brinker was a 6-foot corner guy. And then I wrote last year about Borgonzi bringing that down and being fine with 5'11" and saying, McDuffie was 5'10" and a half in Kansas City, and we weren't going to not draft him because of that. And now here they go to 6 foot and with Taylor and maybe 6'2" with Flott. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but they're back to lengthier, long. It's really the length more than the size.
Flott's arms are enormous. They're very long.
But he also weighs like 170.
Right.
And I think it's very telling what Saleh said about that, because he said, if you're out wide and we can jam you and stuff, those guys are going to eat. But if you do things to take that away, get your receivers close to the line of scrimmage and everything, we give up a little foot speed with that size, and it does kind of hurt you. There's a trade-off.
Yeah,
he was very forthcoming about that. I thought that was interesting.
And honestly, one of the best plays of the day overall was a Carnell Tate sort of, I don't know what kind of, maybe a fade route, whatever, in an offensive period near the very, very end, and Cam Ward decides to go to Tate down towards let's say the front of the end zone, like towards the pylon, and Alontae Taylor was on him. It was a good route. It was really good coverage. The ball was thrown pretty well. Carnell Tate does what he's going to do a lot of, which is slow down, take that back step underneath the defensive player, go up and make the catch, and almost made the catch. It would have been an incredible catch, but Taylor makes a really good play. It was just a great all-around football play with two guys going head-to-head, and so I thought that showed well for both of those guys, actually. So I think the corners, as long as they're healthy, I think Nick said this on Friday's episode, like the starting secondary has a chance to be quite good. It's the depth that's sort of the major question, I think, right now.
There was another one I saw on Saturday where I thought that there was a decision being made by Cam, who was looking at Tate, who was in maybe a contested catch position against Taylor, and he decided not to throw it. He threw it over both their heads. And I think if Taylor wasn't Tate's virtual equal size-wise, he would have given him contested catch.
I see what you're saying. Paul, you mentioned that Helm looked like he might be a little bit slow. Could just be that he's Jason Witten that just gets open with speed and size and moves the sticks. I think he's more of a polished route runner, hands catcher than he is a speed guy. You don't have to.
I don't think he's going to run away from people. I think he might bowl over an initial guy with a head of steam. If he does get in some space into a seam or whatever, that he could secure a ball, put his shoulder down, and deliver a big impact. That'll be a big reaction. But Titans have for a long time had a guy that could run in that spot. Delaney Walker was a great runner. Jonnu Smith was a pretty good runner. And certainly Chig was a good runner. And they don't have a good runner at tight end now. And so if you watch that group, we have a lot of time to watch, especially the way we're positioned more frequently now at practice in the end zones, watching guys run towards us. If you watch those tight ends running their routes towards us, they look slow to me as a group.
They are not an explosive group. I agree. But you don't have to be you can be a very good tight end group and not be great at separation or yards after the catch. Jonnu Smith had this like physical running style that would create space after the catch. They don't have any of those guys. But
I think that's an adjustment for a Titans fan who for his whole life has seen some explosiveness out of that position.
All right, quickly, like Kevin Winston, that guy's a dog. I don't know how great he's going to be or average he's going to be, but his mentality permeates the entire secondary. And I think with Flott and Taylor in there and Hooker being healthy and kind of having some veteran and Marcus Harris, I think that's an observation. Once Winston gets the pads on, it's no surprise that Winston is the guy in the mix on the second snap of the practice when they have team drills and he's getting into it with Latham. I thought it was interesting, PK, because you and I have had so many talks about Latham, that Latham and Winston are the two guys going at it. And again, going at it is a loose term. They were just kind of holding each other. But I'm interested in your psychological analysis of this, because Latham is a guy that we've talked about needs to have sort of a mentality up level. Like he needs to level up his mentality, needs to be more of a dog, right? And him standing up for it was just a running play. Maybe it's him standing up for his running back that either indicates he feels like he has something to prove right away or that he's become more of that dog. Whereas I think Winston's involved in that skirmish because Winston is a dog, like if that makes sense.
Well, I'll take the Latham side of this because I've written a lot about it and I've talked a ton about it. I thought Latham, in speaking to us for the first time, and then I spoke to him for a little while away from the podium, and I've talked about this, like how much can you improve your mental game away from the stresses of the actual game during an off season? And I thought he was excellent. I thought he helped himself and explained himself as much as you can do in a conversation, right? You need to see this stuff in practice and whatever. But he basically said, look, I'm a big, strong guy. And there's only so much I can help myself with that part of my game. I got to go do this other stuff. And neural pathways and emotional intelligence and understanding locker room community and communication are all really big for me. And I have a mental coach and I've read and I've looked at this neural pathway stuff and I understand it. I know what that can do for me. And I know that's going to make or break me because the physical stuff is there. And I just have to understand how to let a play go, a play that I might not like to call or a play that I might not like how I executed it. And I got to compartmentalize that and put it away and wait until I watch the film and get on to the next thing and not let people get under my skin and not let things overtake me and all of that and locker room dynamics and all of that stuff. If I coached him how to talk about stuff, I couldn't have done as well as he did. Now, I don't know, does he have a bad game and does that stuff still overwhelm him or does he go out the window? He's was a little bit of an isolationist and I think he really gets what it means to bond with the line and the team. And I think he kind of pulled away from guys last year. but I don't think you could have heard better stuff from Latham. And while everybody was fascinated with the Levis stuff on Saturday, I was way more interested in Latham because Latham's going to play for and help this team this year, or heard it. Yeah. And Levis isn't.
What's really interesting, we got a lot of questions about the O-line, so we're going to get there in just a moment. But what's really interesting is it reminds me of being a parent of young kids now versus being a child of young parents in the 90s, where I played football in the 90s. I was a kid in the 90s. My parents were young parents in the 90s, and a lot of the complexities of psychology were not either understood or we didn't desire to study this stuff, whether it's in sports or in life. And the way we parent today of young children, it's so much more emotionally nuanced. And so JC sounds like a 2026 young person. Like he just sounds like that. And I think what's going to be weird and interesting, but also fascinating to watch is, does that new mentality or new approach of an entire generation, what does that do inside of this gladiator situation? And is it because it's clear that he's like, I'm trying the stuff I need to do. The question is, does it work? And is that the right thing? Is it to be that emotionally aware? Does that help you in football, or do you need to kind of dumb it down? The way we talk about Femi being really intelligent, but needs the game to maybe be simpler for him to just attack so that he's not overthinking the game. I find that to be I'm with you. I find it to be very interesting.
And it's connected to Levis, because Levis was a mental health conversation too, to a big degree. It was a mental health day on Saturday with Levis talking about not worrying about what people are saying about me and all of that. But I wrote about Levis later. What Levis needs, just as an aside, is fresh tape. People can hear all that stuff about Levis, but they need to see him do some stuff. And fresh preseason tape may not be enough. And, he may wind up being one of the best 32. He's not now. The league has decided that. It's clear. If they thought that, they would have traded for him during the draft. And not only did they not, they didn't even inquire. So
unfortunately, and this is not meant to be too harsh on Will, but he has not done anything in a week that is good tape. Meaning putting fresh tape together to show people I've got a new attitude, or I've got a new approach, or I've learned this. He actually did, I thought, in OTAs and minicamp, have a little bit of a different approach. And I think, he was taking something off the football. He looked more accurate. He looked more engaged. And I think this week in camp, I think maybe reality is setting in that he's clearly the third quarterback. And
he doesn't look good.
He just hasn't. The body language isn't great. The throwing the football isn't great. I think he put a couple in the dirt today that should have been completed. He threw one really wide. And I was sitting there talking with some folks today, and it's like, it looks like the ball goes where he wants it to go, and it's 4 yards wide. Like that's why, you're like, man, what's going on here? Because he looks like he's in rhythm. He steps and he throws and he puts it right where he wants it, and it's just 4 yards away from the receiver running a crossing route. And you're like, man, that's not good. That's not where it's supposed to be. All right, let's go the rest of the offensive line here. Rusty says, how are the O-line additions looking? What does the starting O-line look like, says my mama wisdom. And somebody else had asked earlier, I want to make sure I get this correct. Here we go. Who is Cam says who's starting? Cam Sailaway starting at right guard. We're not going to talk number ones, and I'll just say
Schloteman's very clearly this center. There's not been a lot of pressure on Schloteman, and that's been talked about pretty widely. We're comfortable saying that. And both Volson and Slater have had their chances at right guard. Even somebody else got in the mix a little bit today with the ones, which was a surprise. We don't have the freedom to just come right out and talk about that stuff, and we abide by the rules, unlike a shit ton of people who aren't regulars out here and don't have the respect that we have from the team. But they look fine. I mean, it's not a real rush. We're not going to know. There might be some one-on-ones. There might not be some one-on-ones that would tell us a little bit more in an isolated situation that is also not realistic. I mean,
we'll get to that in a second.
The best dose we will get of this is in Santa Clara on Tuesday, next week from tomorrow, when we'll see Titans line go against San Francisco's defensive line.
I think everyone knows 4 of the 5 starters. I think right guard is there were every name you can imagine has been at right guard. So,
I would proclaim Jackson Slater as the favorite right now.
Really? Okay.
Based on what snap percentages or whatever. I feel like that's probably the case, but it could just be like it'll even out in another 3 days. I don't know.
Right. That's right. I think Carmona got some run out there. I think it's been, basically anybody you can guess has been playing right guard. I do think, Coogan, I think is, and we'll get to the rookie review here coming up, but I think Coogan's been a pretty dependable piece at the slot that he's slotted into, and everybody can kind of guess where these people are. But I thought the line did a pretty decent job run blocking in certain spots today. How much is that real? How can you really tell if what you're looking at is real? I don't know. But against Simmons and Franklin Myers and those guys, I thought there was a couple of moments where the holes were there and you pick up 6, 7, 8 yards and, you call that a victory by the offensive line to just get the initial block correct and create a hole. And then there was other times where they were getting blown up and people were in the backfield. So it's just hard to know when you're looking at the offensive line what exactly is going on. I think the goal for this group, should J.C. Latham be good, is to be an average NFL offensive line. If they are above 16th in the league and they are 14th or 15th or 13th in that area, then I think this will they will have made progress, knowing that you're probably going to need to get at least 2 more starters in next offseason or develop one of these guys into a starter next offseason.
Yeah, and Zach Lyons has posted has pointed this out. I'll give him credit, but I've noticed it since he pointed it out. Almost all of their individual practice, or all of it, has been real life work. They're not working a lot of bags. They're not working a lot of sleds. They're not working a lot of stuff. Their hands are on each other, moving each other.
Go figure. I will say Saleh has I think the brand of Saleh's approach is formulating, which is he has a very ramp up, very intentional. We're going to build to certain things, but everything is like his entire explanation, and we can go ahead and play it now. Let's get to individual conversation, but his entire explanation is generally strategically designed for a purpose to replicate what you do in a game as often as possible. Quickly, James Williams, I thought was really good today.
He had a great day today. I wonder if
everywhere.
They planned on using him a lot today, if it was a James Williams day, which would be kind of weird to give a guy a day on the first day of pads. Saleh said he's down to 230, which is where they really want a backer like him. Or, you and I were speculating hey, he's made some plays and they've left him in there. So maybe they've said, hey, right. Let's scrap that. We're going to leave James in there because James is going.
He's lighter, which I think Saleh is because he wants him to play a little bit faster, of course, around the line of scrimmage. He said he was at 250 at times last year. He's down to 230 right now, which is what he wants him at. He had a really, really great tackle for loss when he was lined up with the twos, basically against the twos, and had a really big step into the hole and just blew up a run play. He had a pass deflection on Trubisky where he rolls out and he went up and made a really nice play. Then he had another couple of tackles in the hole. And then we saw him lining up with up the roster a little bit, and he was being used in a lot of creative situations. And you can imagine a player with his length, size, and athleticism where this team might need some length, size, and athleticism. And so if they can get something from him in spot duty in different spots, well, he becomes a very versatile backup depth piece.
And I think that's very unusual that they did that because they're pretty intent on not doing that. You have your spot, and we're not going to throw in wrinkles and use guys in odd situations. Scroll back one and hit the early Daniel Caribbean, not the most recent one, but before that, he asked about the new guy. Laki Tassi. He was signed as a defensive lineman. He played some defensive line today. Took up 2 blockers very easily. 6'6", 373. Very intimidating. But I will not say the biggest guy because I think Corey Simon weighed in at about that, but he was like 6'1". Corey Simon is still like the widest, most awkward looking guy that's ever been here, and that was at the end of his career. I don't think he played for the Titans, and I don't think he played again.
Ready Set says you guys said other than INTs, Cam had a good day. Can you hit the highlights? Was accuracy better at the start of camp? The short answer, yes, but go listen to the start of the show, the first 15 minutes. Not trying to be snarky, but I can't go back and repeat ourselves. Who else stood out to you in a good way? I think we were asked a little bit about Singleton, but I think what's interesting is I don't feel like I'm seeing a number 1 running back to some degree. I feel like they're using Spears and Pollard a lot interchangeably. They are putting Spears out there first. They're putting Pollard out there first. They're putting Spears in the slot. They're throwing the ball to him. I think I would still clearly have Tony Pollard getting the most touches this year. I just think, and I know we've done this conversation a million times, but if Spears is healthy, I think it is more of a 65-35, 60-40 split on carries and touches total than it is like a 80-20, if I had to guess.
We saw a few runs that were blocked up particularly nicely, but I don't care about a run between the tackles in a training camp practice where usually you can't tell anything. So I don't pay that close attention to that element. I mean, Pollard's very clearly the number one running back. Spears has looked really good on screens and dump offs. I don't know if it's translatable, to call, more random situations and how much of a screen team they want to be and all of that. But he generally looks very good in camp.
One of the things that James Foster and I talked about, you can go back and watch this entire video on the 440 YouTube page, which is we did a deep dive into Daboll's system and tendencies for the Giants all of last season. And one of the things James Foster noticed was the high percentage relative to league average of times that other players handled the football than the quarterback on an offensive snap. And it was a very, very high number last year. I don't have it in front of me, but it was a very high number. And I think, without giving too much away, I think we're seeing a lot of Brian Daboll in his bag creativity already very early in the first week and a half.
We see more than one today? We saw one.
There was one today, but there are other things that are similar to that they were running today. And so I think that's where it's interesting. And just keep an eye on that. That's something that we noticed on tape about this Daboll offense last year. So just keep an eye on that. All right, let's get to Robert Saleh here. This was you asked him essentially individual drills are going to start tomorrow. And you asked him about his philosophy, about his strategy, about his plan for this. And
it wasn't my question. It was Easton.
Oh, that's right. It was Easton. All right. So shout out to Easton. I apologize, my guy. It was a good question by Easton. And here was his answer.
Yeah. So when you look traditionally throughout football, at least over the last, I'd say 5 to 10 years, one-on-ones has been the second biggest period with regards to injury. And you find that in one-on-ones, you get like a linebacker and a running back running 10 yards apart, just colliding with one another, or you run routes where, you wouldn't necessarily run those routes out in the actual timing and rhythm of a play. You got triple moves, just all these kind of hokey routes. So we run kind of a 7-on-7 man only normal spacing, put the quarterback through a normal cadence, where you're getting 5 one-on-ones at one time with real authentic routes within a play call. And we match up the players the way we need to make sure that we're getting the matchups that we all want to see. Same thing you saw the running backs and linebackers have a one-on-one today with regards to protection, a little bit tighter, a little bit closer. So it's really kind of injury prevention, but at the same time, you're still getting that competitive aspect of it where it's a one-on-one. The big guys, I leave it up to them on whether or not they want to get those one-on-ones. Like I said, it's unrealistic, but if the big guys want to use individual to get a one-on-one, and they can.
So let me. I think the injury thing has to happen more with running backs, linebackers first, DBs and receivers. I would imagine that offensive and defensive line isn't having the number of injuries, but also I think the offensive and defensive line in one-on-ones is where you learn the most. I think you learn the most about the offensive and defensive line in one-on-ones than you do for any other position battle.
I would hope that they'll do them. I suspect that if they do them, they'll be in a place where we can't really see them. Right? I mean, you need to get a good view of those. We've traditionally been on a sideline from them. So I don't know. I think it'll be hit or miss as to whether we can see them. Receiver and DB one-on-ones are, the best thing you could put on social media in terms of people wanting to see them. And if they're running 5 at a time, who you just have to pick one to lock in on if they're filmable at all.
But 5 at a time is better though. Huh? 5 at a time is very much more. So Saleh's argument there is that we're going to
7-on-7 kind of
right. We're going to do it more in a football scenario because I agree. One-on-ones, corner versus DB it's like for the fans, man. Like
Right.
it's
But so if they're doing 5 at a time, then it's like a 7-on-7. Is he saying they'll throw to all 5? Because then do
I
you
don't think
have
so.
3 quarterbacks throwing and 2 equipment guys throwing? Because we've seen that. Like everybody gets a ball, or
What
I don't know exactly how it plays out.
Here's an interesting. I would like to see 2 quarterbacks split the field in half, 3 over here, 2 over here, 3 over here, 2 over, and then you've got.
What's the better?
You don't know which one's going to get the ball, but you all have to play like it's a real play. But there's like a 50% chance you get the ball versus a 20% chance or something like that. If you that would make sense to me, is have 2 quarterbacks. Then
send that in to the coach. Does he have a call-in show?
Probably on one of these local radio stations.
Coach and Ramon.
If the screen
Ramon, I have a question.
If the screen games look good, is that an indication that this type of front rush is vulnerable to it? I don't think we can learn that much about anything, but there have been a couple of very well-designed screen plays. I think in particular, there was one where everybody was going one direction, they went back the other way. That happened twice today. So
I think the way they talk about this attack front, the front four would certainly be vulnerable to it. But that's the point. It's only 4 going, so there should be enough other people there in position to still help on a screen. You're not sending 5 and 6 or even 7, in which case then you're really. And the other thing is, and this goes way back, David Beauclair had this with, I think, Greg Williams way back in the day. Like you have to be smart enough as a pass rusher to understand the difference between winning and not being blocked.
Right.
And if you're not being blocked, you probably ought to turn around and go chase.
Yeah, you're losing. I think overall the one-on-one individual thing is just another example, as I said earlier, like Salah's approach and his brand as a coach is, I think, clearly coming into focus. And that is this sort of slow buildup with a focus on real situations. And like, we're going to be careful about diets. We're going to be careful about body injuries. We're going to be careful about our design of our practice. We're going to be careful not to throw deep routes early in the week of practice. Like everything feels very coordinated and specific, and very, I don't want to say or careful, that's the wrong term, but strategically designing things so that the players are not being stressed too often in too many unusual ways. It's just, we're going to try to keep it football, and we're going to kind of slow build here. And I think that seems like his approach to most things, it feels like.
And I mean, it's probably smart in the sense that you're forced to do it to a degree anyway.
Yeah. All right. This is Carnell Tate. This is a few questions here. He gave fairly short answers, but there's a few answers I thought that were worth listening to, and hopefully the sound on this works. So here was Carnell Tate today.
For me, it's been nonstop. I mean, from the season to the combine to the drive, from the visits to OTA to the camp. So it's been nonstop football, which I love. I ain't complaining at all. I get to go out there and play football.
With this being your first camp, what are some things you're hoping to take away throughout the next weeks?
I'm just soaking it in, just trying to get better here and there and just learn and then prepare myself for the season and then ultimately just learn and reflect and get ready for next year.
Relative to the learning, Coach Salah said, I asked him about your evolution, what he sees, and he said there's a game within a game that Carnell is still trying to pick up. What does he mean by that?
Well, I'm just trying to learn the entire playbook. That's what I've been doing at Ohio State. I learned the entire playbook, so I'm just trying to learn as much as possible each and every position. So we should work on getting better and then working on our connection. Whether he sees the defense one way, I see the defense one way, and then expect a different type of throws in different situations.
You guys spend a lot of time like just kind of like going against imaginary defense and where you need to be in some.
Yeah, exactly. We spend time going against imaginary defense and showing up at different windows, showing up further than using a boarding route. We also work a little bit of strong material crossbody.
What has stood out to you the most about the way in which Cam communicates what he thinks?
Cam's real on the front. Like he gonna tell you how you feel straight up. Like make him a blank, learn. So like I like that about Cam. He tell you he should be straight.
How much do you appreciate putting the pads on? Yeah, playing real football, so to speak. So
yeah, I appreciate every part of it. I mean, I'm blessed to go out there, play football, and have fun. That's what I like to do. I go out there and have fun with guys.
All right, I know that was a little bit tricky to hear there. I think what's interesting about Carnell Tate is in his talk with the press, and I think the way he plays, like nothing feels too much for him. He feels very calm and collected. I think he's wired in the same way that Cam Ward is. I think there's some introspection there. I did think his line about I'm just trying to soak it all in, and in a very casual way, he's just sort of like, yeah, I'm just really kind of just trying to soak it all in. I think there's a temperament there that you like if you are a general manager or a coach. I don't know if it means anything for his success or failure. His answers are short and not great for us in the press, but I think for him, he's very calm and he's very collected when it comes to communicating, and I think also playing wide receiver.
Well, I think he's a good-looking wide receiver with a lot of promise. And he's a calm guy. I don't read much into anything he said there, except that he's borderline disinterested
in talking with the press.
Yeah, which is, I mean, guys have that prerogative, but there are a lot of guys on this team who are new guys who are very interesting.
Yeah,
so
Pat Coogan,
if he's not interesting, I'll be content to report on hopefully good numbers that he puts up and talk to a lot of other very interesting guys.
Well, it's not that it. So I think interesting has to be. We got to kind of frame that up a little bit, because I find that type of approach, and I think Cam and Tate are wired in a very similar way. Like their natural temperaments are very similar. I find that to be interesting because, just because you appear calm and uninterested does not mean that there's a lot happening underneath the surface or back in the back of your head or whatever. And so I like digging into those kinds of things more. And I think Cam has this old soul wisdom about him. And I think I'd be fascinated to know. I'm assuming he gets it from his father, but I'd love to know more about where that comes from. And so those are people that are just naturally wired that way. Whereas Anthony Hill is just naturally wired in a totally different way.
See, I got to throw some water on some things here. Daniel Caribbean says, I heard Ridley was talking a lot to Tate today. I'd like to hear that. I mean, there are two receivers in the same receiving group. What do you think? He's going to give him the silent treatment? Of course they're talking. That this is an exciting development to you worries me. You can look for better than that.
Ridley, by the way, also talks to everybody.
Yeah, he's a talker.
Yeah. I did not expect the Tate Ridley bromance, but I love it.
For something better than that.
All right, let's do a rookie review here. We got about 10 minutes left in the show. Go to Sinkers Beverages, everybody. PaulKuharsky.com. Tickets still available for Saturday night. And then just pop into Sinkers. Great bourbon selection, award-winning craft beer fridge as well. So just awesome place to go shop. They got all your needs for anything you could possibly want. Yes, Paul.
One more thing on this Ridley thing. Does everybody think Ridley's been great here?
In Nashville?
We all think that Ridley is the best guy for Tate to be getting all of his receiver advice from? Or are we treating Tate like he's Jerry Rice? Because Ridley's made a lot of mental errors in his time here. Ridley's, senses defensive backs sometimes when they're not there, and he goes out of bounds when he has 3 more yards to get a first down. I don't know if I'm a Titans fan if I'm going, yes, Tate is learning from Ridley. Why are you so excited by that?
I think Ridley's a smarter.
Tate should learn from Lewis, the coach who played in a Super Bowl,
or Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Ridley's a better player and knows more about the game than you're giving him credit for. It does not mean that he's your points are all very valid, though. I don't disagree with your points. All right, let's do some rookie stuff here. I think we talked a lot about Carnell Tate on Friday. I think Carnell Tate has looked like a number 1 receiver. There's going to be bad practices, good games, bad games, good practices. He's going to have some ups and downs, but I think so far I've seen what I need to see from a guy that I think could be better than I expected. So I don't want to talk too much about Tate specifically. Keldrick.
I mean, he's made some nice plays, but he hasn't had the highlight reel stuff we saw in the spring.
Keldrick Falk, Anthony Hill. Let's go with those two. Through a week of practice, where do we think they're at with this team?
Keldrick Falk's pretty disruptive guy. You should definitely notice the size and the strength, and I feel like he looks like a guy that's been unchained, and he's talked about his different role from what he was asked to do in Auburn, and I think he's really enjoying it. Hill, I haven't noticed a lot. He's not played a lot with the ones, and I think he's could be in the slow learn. It's early still, but it could be in the slow learn category of Cedric Gray, which would disappoint me as a 2nd-round pick.
Well, there's been some names playing with the ones in the linebacking group that we didn't necessarily expect. But I think what's interesting is the interesting thing around Hill for me is does the guy get more opportunity to gain that ground on the second and third team as the green dot communicator play caller, or as sort of like the side guy on the first team? You see what I'm saying? Like, where does a linebacker actually have the most opportunity to grow? And I will say I've seen Hill in lots of different places up and down the lineup. So maybe that's just about giving him as much opportunity to learn the position, because even Saleh today talked about the linebacking positions. Like, all the techniques are the same. All the things that you need to do at all three positions are the same. On any given play, it's going to be a totally different obligation.
We've seen Diabate. We've seen Williams.
Yeah.
Anybody else? In the spring, Mouse.
Nobody high up on the not that I can think of. I mean, it's Gray, Barton, and then a few guys, but that's about it. The question is, what again? If Hill is calling, because I thought I saw Hill call most of the snaps when he was in the game, and so if they're trying to if they want him to do that role, well, you're not going to do that role with the first team, right? And so is it just a normal situation for him where you're just kind of teaching him? Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'm not articulating that well.
Is it better for him to work with the twos?
Yeah. Does that mean he's actually slowly developing, or does it mean that they're bringing him along at a certain position to take over at some point? What about Fernando Carmona and Pat Coogan? What about the two offensive linemen?
Well, Carmona was a surprise today to get some run higher than you would have thought. Coogan is running higher generally than he ran in the spring. Like, the spring was an apprenticeship. I noticed Coogan, offensive line has some time that it gets by itself into practice. I don't know. The defensive line doesn't use that time. It kind of rests and observes. Offensive line comes over and works. And the first day in front of the fans, they're kind of lingering and resting a bit before they start that period. And the fans were looking for some juice, and Coogan was the one giving it. He's that guy, and he's over there waving his arm and getting him charged up. He's not saying, "Well, I'm a rookie, maybe I shouldn't be the guy doing that as a second, third teamer." He didn't hesitate. No, he's I gave the speech in the locker room team captain of the national championship team. Like, that's what you expect out of that guy. We'll go to Jaron Kanak here, because Daniel says, how has Kanak looked as a blocker? I've read that he's been explosive as a receiver, but he's a versatile tight end. I would expect him to be. He is good. I think he is a very good receiver for what he is, which is a move back, not explosive. What I would say about his blocking is that they have to put him in the right positions and situations to excel as a blocker. He is not going to fire off the line of scrimmage and take somebody and drive them downfield. That is not what he is going to do. But if you put him in the right situation, you motion him here, you create leverage, and then you get him maybe the play going the other direction. That's what I want to see from him, is can he execute the block that he's supposed to? Not is he going to fire off and win a one-on-one by out leveraging and powering somebody. People are misusing words if they think that's explosive as a tight end receiver.
We kind of mentioned Nick Singleton and Jackie Marshall already as well. If anything you want to add on either of those two guys?
Yeah, Singleton needs to run through the
I thought he finished runs very hard today.
Wow.
But that's because
I didn't notice him a lot today. I noticed him the last practice, and he wasn't finishing shit.
He had a really long one today where he broke into the secondary and ran over somebody.
Right, so maybe they
popped to the right. Actually, I take it back. The safety comes up to hit him hard, hits him hard, and he absorbed it and didn't even slow down. Kicked off to the side and kept running, and then pop down the sideline, which is all you do in a run. He
wasn't doing that Saturday. I'm sure that's mentioned to you early. That's a bad sign to me. I'm sure one of the first things Randy Jordan says is finish your runs. And then if I see a guy not finish his runs, I say, well, how is he not listening to the rule number one from the
he finished one on the goal line today too, where he kind of dragged a couple guys and kept fighting for it. So I think maybe that was a point of emphasis to some degree.
I hope it is.
I will be paying attention probably to Jackie Marshall, because I noticed him on Saturday in a few situations, and I was like, oh, okay, 96. I see what you're doing. And I did not see much. I'll admit I didn't watch a lot of him today, but I didn't see him do much today. How about second year players? We've already talked a lot about Winston and DK and Helm and Iomanner, Harris and Slater. This is really about Femi. What have you seen from him?
It looks really big, and he's moving a guy. I don't know that I've seen him in the backfield much.
I don't think I have either, now that I think about that. And then last but not least, the new guys in general, the free agents. We've talked about Schlotman and Volson a little bit.
Wrote about the corners today.
Yeah, I think Wan'Dale Robinson has looked very good.
He had one bad day. Was it Saturday?
Yeah, I think he dropped a couple passes.
Thursday or Saturday where he dropped some and looked out of sync.
Any other newbies? I'm trying to think. Mitch Trubisky, I think, today was his worst day. I think he looks pretty good most of the time.
I talked to him today and liked that. He gave me some really good stuff about the freedom you feel under Dayball and the accomplishment you feel when sometimes you do things that aren't necessarily what the coach looked for, but succeed, and how you can play for some coordinators where even if you move the team downfield, if it's not the way the coach wants, it's perceived as a failure, and how bad that feels. And so I'm going to apply that to Cam.
Okay. PaulKuharsky.com. You got a lot of stuff up there, man. Tell everybody what you got up there right now.
Talking about the corners, that piece is just up fresh. My take on certainly what Will Levis said, how J.C. Latham rebuilt the mental side of his game.
Jacob Martin, good stuff from Jacob Martin last week.
My last podcast, what was real and what was not, about the early stuff in camp. Jacob Martin shedding light on the Titans' transition to Robert Saleh's attacking front and more. Check it out.
There you go, PaulKuharsky.com. Sinkers Beverages, please come out on Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Titans are doing some cool stuff on Friday night, so why don't you come hang out with us on Saturday night? Sinkers Beverages birthday party at Basement East. Come over to Tomato Fest. Shoot me a tweet or a DM or something somewhere on the internet, and we'll be around hanging out. I'll post where we're going, and then, of course, we'll be at Basement East Saturday evening to celebrate Sinkers, so please come on out. Thank you guys for hanging out in the comments. Thumbs up, notifications turned on. Today, Paul, I wasn't ever going to do this. But as they were walking out for their first team drill with pads on, like I kind of felt like clapping. I felt like it. I didn't do it, but I felt like it. But it wasn't for anything the Titans were doing. It was because I felt like football was actually back for the first time.
It's not back.
It was back
on what, September 13th?
No, college football starts way before that. High school football is already, scrimmages are taking place. So in the South, football is back, Paul.
Professional football.
Don't be a grumpy puss.
I already all this Thursday night. Everybody
back here in my heart, Paul.
Oh, Pickett is starting. It's an NFL game. No, it's not.
It's in my heart. It's back in your heart. You don't have to. I will break that cold, dead heart of yours and get excited about football. Okay.
I'll watch some college. I'm excited for high school, but the pro football starts like whatever opening day.
Go watch whatever jamboree or scrimmage that is in your area. Go support good local high school footballs. It's the lifeblood of this sport, so go support it.
Pump up Ravenwood Raptors.
Oh, stop.
It's my team.
FHS, baby. Is that FHS? I don't go down there and watch those games anymore. Who am I kidding? All right, thanks for hanging out.
Nashville High.
Thanks for watching. We will talk to you guys later. Peace and love.
Don't block the box.